Hello, this is Vulturefire, and it's time for another Breach Wanderers patch breakdown. So this time around, it is a smaller patch, but it still has quite a lot of new content that is exciting to talk about. Like in the previous patch breakdown, this video is not intended to be an exhaustive list of everything that changed. If you want to see a video that talks in detail about all of the new cards, or all of the cards that changed, or how to play the new character, I expect to have up videos about all of those in the near future. But for now, this video is meant as just a quick overview of what the new features are and what you can expect going into this patch. So let's get into it. The first feature, and by far the biggest one, is that we have a new character. This character is named Sharu, and they are a fairy assassin. So their mechanics are based around discard and summoning enemies to kill. So in the last patch, we got the ability to summon enemies in the form of the Vengeful Shades. Those return again here, with Sharu having a focus around killing enemies, and especially around killing the Vengeful Shades, because they can be summoned on cards that you get a discount on the card because it has the downside of summoning a Shade, and then Sharu can get value out of killing the Shade, so that turns that downside into upside. So aside from that, Sharu is a discard-focused character. They have their first passive, and several of their cards are focused on discard. If you want to see more about how to play Sharu, I have a number of videos uploaded that are runs with the character. And I also plan to record an introductory sort of new player's guide to how to play Sharu, and a review of all of Sharu's cards to give an idea of sort of where I feel they are at in terms of balancing. I think they're all pretty good, but I want to talk about how I would use them, how I do use them. And moving on from that, we also got a lot of new generic cards. We got 9 new generic cards this time, so that's 3 packs. If you had all of the cards unlocked previously, then you will be able now to buy 3 additional packs that will contain exactly those 9 cards. If you didn't have the full collection of cards, then the 9 new cards will be scattered in among all of your other unlocks. As always, cards are unlocked in a random order. You get 3 new ones each time you open a pack, but aside from being cards you haven't seen yet, there is no restriction. I will talk over what exactly these new cards are and how they work in another new video. Like I said, will be coming out soon, but it's not out quite yet, at the time of recording this at least. Aside from that, we have 26 new items. And so I say that these are new normal items because these are items that will appear in your item pool. So whenever your artifact is fully charged and you have the ability to claim an item, these can show up as options. There are 7 new weapons, 4 new outfits, 5 new accessories, and 10 new trinkets. I do plan to have a video that is talking over all of these new items and the ones that I think are the best, which ones I think are, to put it charitably, very niche in their usefulness. So a lot of these items are very cool. One of the big changes, though, is because we have a lot of new items, that does reduce quite how often you will see the items that were already in the game. And this will hopefully help make runs be a little bit more different. It'll be a little less consistent to be able to find your favorite items. But several of the new items are very powerful. And so overall, I think your runs will be... I don't think this is an impact on the overall difficulty of runs. These items aren't weak or anything. It's just that you won't be able to as consistently find specific items that you are used to relying on to win with. It will be less common to find Aether Mantle specifically, or Duplicitome specifically. Anyway, I will be talking over all of these new items in a video that I will be recording soon. And I will link all of these videos I'm talking about in the description of this one. So if you are curious, there should be links there. Other things, we got a new secret boss. So I'm not going to go into details about this boss. I want to give people a chance to encounter the new boss for the first time and have that full exciting experience of learning what pain feels like on their own. I've only actually seen this boss once. It was introduced relatively late in the beta, and it appears only in an event in Area 3. Similar to the Dragonfly Rider event in Area 2, this boss is much more dangerous than other fights in the area. Fortunately, if you do get the event to fight this boss, you will get the option to not fight it because it is, like I said, very, very difficult. But if you do beat the boss, you will get bragging rewards, of course, for having beaten the new secret boss. And it will also give you a unique item. So I said 26 normal items. There are 27 new items total. The 27th you get by defeating this new boss. And you will get a chance to pick up one of its 2 unique monster cards, because it is a new monster, so it has new monster cards. And so that is another reason to consider fighting it. Is it's a bonus boss fight. You get a full extra bonus boss worth of rewards. That's worth risking your entire run on the hardest fight in the game, right? Of course it is. So let's talk about mechanic changes. So that was all of the sort of the new content, but this mechanic change functionally is new content because bleed now works very differently. So the first thing is bleed now only counts non-mana cards. This is a buff as far as dealing with bleed that you take from enemies, although enemies that apply bleed will now apply a little bit more bleed to account for this. But the other thing that happens is enemies with bleed no longer take damage at the end of their turn. Instead, bleed now works the same way for enemies as it does for players, which is to say, when you play a non-mana card, everything with bleed takes 1 damage per rank of bleed you have. If you have 1 bleed, you take 1 damage. If the enemy has 1 bleed, that enemy takes 1 damage. So if you can put a lot of bleed on an enemy, they will take a lot of damage as you play cards. So if you have seen my other videos, you know how much I like playing a lot of cards in 1 turn, and the new bleed is great at rewarding that. You can very easily end up dealing a lot of damage very quickly, thanks to that. Especially if you've seen me play Shrew and you've seen any of my runs where I pick up the apply bleed on strike items, you have seen just how devastating getting to high bleed counts can be. With that said, of course, cards that apply bleed now apply much less bleed because you get more damage per bleed. So for example, Garrote, which is a card that used to be 30 mana for apply 10 bleed, now only applies 2 bleed. However, you can now get more than 10 damage out of it because you just have to play enough cards to follow it up with. So it makes it quite a bit stronger. Likewise, Arcane Leak also now only counts non-mana cards. That is important because it makes it a lot easier to manage getting hit by, especially on turns like against if you're fighting double Arcane Wisp and they both apply Arcane Leak to you, now you've got Arcane Leak 4. The fact that it now only counts non-mana cards means that you'll actually be able to at least play some stuff potentially without being in real trouble, although you'll still obviously get hit by Arcane very, very quickly. The other this does make Cursed Horseshoe even better than it was before. The other note, though, is that Arcane Leak now works on enemies in the same way that Bleed does, but there's no way to apply Arcane Leak to enemies yet. So if you could apply Arcane Leak to an enemy, then whenever you played a non-mana card, it would apply Arcane to them. But we can't apply Arcane Leak to enemies yet, but that's something to look forward to in the future, is that we'll presumably get cards that let us take advantage of that. Another change. This one is very straightforward. Envenom now applies 2 poison per hit instead of 1. It is straightforward, but it is very powerful. This makes Envenom quite a bit stronger. If you have seen me play in a lot of my Shrew decks, I'm now running Virulent Strike, which is the currently actually the only card that lets you gain Envenom. But it is very good, and it lets you do quite a lot of apply quite a lot of poison in a relatively short amount of time. So this makes any poison deck, this makes Envenom much, much stronger in multi-hit decks because it is now applying actually a reasonable amount of poison. And in Shrew decks in particular, Envenom is very powerful. So consider trying it out. So that is it for mechanic changes. We have some town cost rebalancing. The first thing is that the Arcane Connectivity and Astral Spyglass Forge upgrades are cheaper. Unlocking some of the market slots is cheaper. So that's just less gold overall to buy those upgrades. It will now cost less gold to max out your everything in town. Some of the heroes are now cheaper to unlock. For example, Inna is now 750 instead of 1,000 gold. However, buying the 4th and 5th market items in one run is more expensive. The 4th item now costs 1,500 up from 1,000, and the 5th item now 2,500 up from 2,000. This largely will only affect players who are very deep in the game like I am, because most of the time there's not really, if you're just trying to play casually, usually even if you have the whole market unlocked, you're only going to want to buy up to like 2 or 3 for the most usefulness. But if you are buying all of the items, it is now going to be pretty difficult, even on PC, to manage to get enough gold to continuously buy every single market item, every single run without caring. And this was done mostly because at this point, the more experienced players just kind of end up with this mountain of gold that is, and there's no gold sinks in the game, so this just makes that a little bit more of a gold sink. It's still very possible to buy all the items for a run if that's what you want to do, but you maybe won't want to do it every run anymore. And I imagine for most of you watching this, you weren't buying all of them every run anyway. Other changes, the default character changed. So this is mostly going to affect new players. If you start the game now, you will start with Salon instead of Rowden. That is the cannon guy instead of the frost mage. So if you already have a save, that if you're coming into this and you didn't have Salon unlocked before this update, you will immediately unlock Salon for free. Rowden now costs 750 gold to unlock, but if you've already started your save before this patch, you already have Rowden unlocked, he'll stay unlocked, he'll keep his levels, all of that. This only will apply to players who are just starting, and they will then have to buy Rowden to unlock him, but they will get Salon by default instead. So that just is a slight change to the sequencing of the early game. And then the other thing is that, as usual, this is a Breach Wanderers patch. There are lots of card changes that got buffed or nerfed. Not quite as many as last time. I think there are only 80-ish cards that got changed this time, maybe 90. And a lot of those were just wording tweaks because some of the terminology got streamlined or made more consistent in various places to prevent confusion. But I will talk about the cards that changed that got interesting balance changes in another video. Like I said, expect that in the near future. Look for a description in the look for a link in the description of this video. All right, so that is basically everything. If you want more details, you can read the official patch notes, and that will contain any of the minor things that I didn't think were important enough to comment on here. It will also contain the full list of cards that changed if you want to see that list instead of watching my video, or if even if you've seen my video, I probably won't talk about all of the changes. Or if you are curious if you think a card changed but you're not sure, the official patch notes will have that information. So that is it for this video. It went a little bit longer than I had planned, but still not too long. And I will see you guys in my next video, or if you guys only tune in for patch breakdowns, I guess I will see you for the next patch breakdown. Anyway, that's all for now. Toodles.